Hi, we'll talk today again about my favorite topic, about the north and south node of the moon, or as they know them in Sanskrit, Rahu and Ketu. And these 2 points, they're not exactly planets, they're points. They define the karmic fate of the person. They actually show one of the most interesting things in the chart. And if you learn how to understand just Rahu and Ketu, it's enough. You can learn so much about the person. You can know their biggest insecurities and their biggest strength in their character. And you can really help your children or your husband or your friends or yourself by knowing the position of Rahu and Ketu and what it means in your horoscope, to know what your big mission, spiritual mission in life is, what will bring you fulfillment, how you can help yourself move forward spiritually in development. And very quickly, what is Rahu and Ketu? In Western astrology, Rahu is depicted like that. In Eastern astrology, and Ketu is depicted like that. And Ketu is the south node of the moon, Rahu is the north node of the moon. And very quickly, what exactly do they represent, for those of you who want to know a bit about the background? The moon and the sun are the consciousness. The moon is the personal consciousness. The individual, how you perceive the world. So it's basically the separate individual with its ego. It's the ego consciousness, separate individual mind of the person. While the sun is the big consciousness, the consciousness of the all, of the Godhead or whatever, of the universe, and the ultimate goal of everyone's life is to merge the individual consciousness with the higher consciousness, with the one consciousness, to become one. And this happens over hundreds and hundreds of reincarnations, where very few people have managed to merge, some yogi or Jesus Christ, or saints, and we're still on that path, but we can help with every life, we can help move further the merging of the lower consciousness, the moon, the individual ego consciousness with the higher consciousness, which is the sun. And Rahu and Ketu, the south and north node, represent the point where the sun's ecliptic crosses the moon's ecliptic, actually where the moon's ecliptic crosses the sun ecliptic. And that's why they indicate the positions of growth in the person, of most spiritual growth, because we want to merge the moon and the sun in our consciousness. The moon rules, the moon and the sun, they rule 2 higher glands and chakras in the mind, in the head. And when the Kundalini rises, the energy of the back spine, you merge those two, you merge the signals from those 2 pineal glands with the lower ones of the body. And this is when higher consciousness is achieved. This is when person achieves clairvoyance or nirvana, or unifies their consciousness. They no longer feel separated. They feel like everything is one. And this is the point of reincarnation. So the south node, Ketu, and the north node, they're where the moon crosses, where the ecliptic of the moon crosses the ecliptic of the sun. So these are like something like that. Let's say, maybe I'm not doing it right. So something like that, And one side would be the north-south is Rahu, the north node of the moon, and the south side is Ketu, the south node of the moon. And Ketu is something which indicates in your horoscope what you have to detach from in order to grow towards this, in helping the spiritual process within yourself, in fulfilling the mission. Ketu is something you have to let go. Rahu is something that is a bit of a chaos in your life because you haven't developed in your past life. It's something you have to embrace and work on and develop, because this is where people stumble the most. Ketu is something you have developed a lot in a past life or in the early part of your life, and you have to let go of, not fully detach, not fully, let go of this thing in your life. For instance, if Ketu is with Venus, it doesn't mean you have to let go of relationships, but you have to detach from the concept of this thing. So I'll explain to you later. So now we're going to check when Rahu and Ketu with a certain planet in your horoscope. We checked already when Rahu or Ketu, the north nodes, are in different houses. And whatever house Rahu is, or the north node, you have to develop it. And you have to let go of the house where the south node is, to move your consciousness further, into the merging of the lower and the higher self, the ego with the higher mind, which Rahu and Ketu strive toward. And now we're going to look when Rahu and Ketu are in the same sign, which means conjunct with a planet. If you have a planet conjunct Rahu and Ketu, it means you have to work a lot. It's really like magnified, and it's really stressed in your horoscope because you have some important work to do with this planet. For instance, the sun rules career and goals. If it's with Rahu or Ketu, something specific will be happening in your life about it. And how can you see if you have a planet with the north node or the south node? Well, go to my website, astrolada.com, where I have a birth chart calculator, and enter your time and place of birth. Even if you don't know the time, it's okay. And then you'll get a chart similar to this one. And I just want you to see, for instance, if you see that Rahu is here, I want you to see in the same quadrant, what other planets are in the same quadrant as Rahu. If it's Mars, you know, or Saturn or whatever. And I want you to listen for the videos for any planet which is in the same square or the same sign, as we call, as Rahu or with Ketu. And please watch the videos and listen what you have to develop or let go of in your life. Okay, what happens if you have Venus, which is the planet of relationships, the planet of taking right choices, and the worldly wisdom? Here we have Venus with Ketu in the same sign. Or in Western astrology in your chart, if you're using it, it will be indicated like that. Venus, with Ketu. There you go. If you have Venus in the same sign as Ketu, doesn't matter what degrees, you know, as long as it's in the same sign. Venus represents worldly wisdom. Someone who has Ketu, Ketu shows what we have developed in past lives. So usually there's people, you know, socialites, or they had a very good understanding of the social habits and the worldly rules, what is right and wrong. For instance, sleeping with your best friend's wife is not right. For instance, Venus is all those worldly rules and do's and don'ts, and these people are quite experienced in them from a past life. So they can be. And Venus is also diplomacy, how you behave in society. So these people would often be very diplomatic, very kind, and they'll have a good approach towards you. Kind of, they have a grasp on how to deal with Venusian affairs. And as we said, Venusian affairs, anything social, anything to do with graces, with social etiquette, with making the right choices. Venus is the planet of evaluating things. So, for instance, you have a choice to evaluate whether to start this job or to stay at the present one. And Venus is the planet which makes you take a decision and evaluate. If you stay in the present job, how much worth it will be? Well, at the present job, you have great people, you love everyone, but your salary is not as big. In the new place, you heard that the boss is really paying in the, you know, but the salary is much better. And Venus, if you have a good Venus, it will help you evaluate which is the right choice, you know, which will be more damaging to you, so you can choose the more correct one. People with worse Venus, with bad Venus, they're not so good at making those choices. They always go for the wrong person. That's why Venus is also the planet of relationships. When you have two people to choose, or just even one person, is it worth investing your time and effort of dating this person? And these people are quite good at doing this normally. They've done it good in past lives, you know, and they would not, you know, they will not go into relationships which are overly mad, say, for instance, with a drug addict, thinking they'll save them, or going in a relationship making the wrong choice of sleeping with your brother's wife, you know, or doing such worldly things which will get you into trouble. These people, they have the etiquette, they know what is right and wrong, and it doesn't mean that they will not want to do it, but they know what the consequences are of such worldly actions, so they make good choices in life normally, you know. And it's quite, they often are attracted to relationship from early on from early on in life. They feel like they want to be in a relationships because they've been very much involved in relationships in past life, which brought them certain success, a certain sense of fulfillment. But Ketu is always about learning to detach from the planet it is with. So these people have to learn to detach from the worldly things. Venus rules also all worldly pleasures and enjoyments, and they were developing those in past life. They were able to enjoy those. This gave them pleasure, you know, all worldly enjoyments, good food, making love, all beautiful things, luxurious, good cars, all these things, which are considered luxuries and enjoyment in life. And in this life, a person will be drawn from a young age to those. They'll come naturally to him. But the further one grows, the more they have to detach through the identification of such things. And actually, once the people gain those luxuries, they start feeling dissatisfaction with those. They thought that if they gain the good car, the good-looking wife, Venus represents the wife, a good relationship, all those worldly things that we think make us happy, the luxury house, the luxury, the nice, all those worldly outer things, when you gain them, which give us pleasure, when you start going to a restaurant and you think, yes, this will bring me happiness and pleasure, but people who have Venus with Ketu together with the South Node, they can initially think they would enjoy this, but the more they get these things, the emptier they will feel inside. So this worldly pleasures will no longer bring them this satisfaction. Relationship can be, you've always thought, oh, once I get a partner, I'm finally going to be happy, it will be all cool. You get a partner, you feel, and someone who is very beautiful even, it doesn't matter, but you kind of, even if it's a very cool, kind person, you just feel more and more detached. And I'm not saying you'll always be unhappy in the relationship, but you start feeling that all these worldly pleasures that we think bring us happiness are actually still leaving us empty, are still leaving you empty. And these people can have a very sudden spiritual awakening. It usually happens later in life, after 40, later in life, because they first have to get their fair share of worldly pleasures. So they start feeling this dissatisfaction. And like my teacher says, these people can have a spiritual awakening overnight, and moving from a desire for quite material things and quite worldly pleasures, realizing that these will not bring them happiness. So having a spiritual awakening and realizing which is much more important, which is the spirit, which is feeding the soul and the spirit rather than, the physical desires. Venus is our desires. Now, going after our desires will often leave us feeling very empty, or we quickly get bored and exhausted with those things Venus gives. So it's very good for spiritual development. And usually later in life, these people, even if they're quite material and sensual early on in life, later on they can become very quickly spiritual, because they're just satiated and stop gaining pleasure out of these Venusian things. And often a male with this position, he can attract a wife, which is Venus, who is more detached. Ketu is the detached energy. A wife who is like a bit distant, so it teaches him how to stop identifying himself with relationships. And anyone with this position, the faster they stop ego identifying with the physical pleasures, with relationship, with their desires, with all those Venusian things, and the faster they will progress in life. The faster they'll find happiness. Otherwise, there will be a feeling of emptiness. This is what the South Node brings: emptiness with the planet. It's conjunct the planet it is with, and emptiness. But these people are always very kind and charming, because they know how to. They know they'll never do crazy things in relationships, because they know the consequences of this. They'll not be usually people who cheat. Very rarely, it can be exceptions, or people who'd go and do something socially unacceptable, unconventional, and make very wrong choices, because they know the consequences of these. But their path in this life is to learn to dissociate from the physical luxuries, and to dissociate from the ego attachment to relationships, the ego attachments to always being right, always making the right choice. This is what Venus wants, always do the right choice, always, so the consequences are always perfect. And the faster they learn to do this, the better it is for them, and the more spiritual qualities they strive for, they feel happier, Otherwise, the world gives them dissatisfaction, the pleasures of the world. What happens when Venus is with Rahu, or the North Node? Well, then it's the opposite. Then the person hasn't developed or worked in relationships. So he's very much likely to make a lot of mistakes in relationship before finding the right person. Usually relationships, the right person coming in their life is delayed. It might be in their late 30s, early 40s, depends. For people vary. For different people vary, because they need to first learn how to do relationships properly. They haven't learned how to do it, and they'll be often quite obsessive when it comes to relationship, because Rahu makes you obsessive. While Ketu is the opposite; it detaches you more and more and more, and you want less and less of what Venus represents. People with Venus Ketu, as we said, they would want less and less physical pleasures and less and less. Relationship experiences, and they would kind of be detaching more from it. Rahu is the opposite. It gives you an obsession in that area. So people with this position, they cannot think of anything else but relationships often. I've seen women with this position, they all is about relationship, about men, and they keep making the same mistakes over and over with men. Well, some of you can learn faster, which is good. But usually at least till after 30, 35, when Rahu removes the eclipse, because Rahu, the North Node as we call it, it creates the eclipses, and when a planet is eclipsed, there is darkness there, so a person is a bit like going in the blinds or creating chaos in the love life, in relationships. Venus, as we said, is about making decisions, what is right and what is wrong. So such people will find it, that they make a lot of mistakes always, and they make the wrong choices, So you have two men here, or two women, and you have this position, you're thinking, Maria is super sexy, she's super good looking, but, she's a stripper and she's crazy, but she's so good looking. And then Martha is the other one. Well, she's much more humble. She's from a good family, but I don't have the same excitement towards you. And you go with the crazy woman, and which will create much more drama around you. Or a woman, always going for the wrong type of guys in relationship, always making the wrong mistakes, always making mistakes or relationship choices to partners who are a bit more difficult to deal with. But experience helps these people grow, and they develop more and more in relationships, just like a baby keeps falling in the beginning when it's learning to do something. Such people can have a few falls in relationships before they learn how to do it right. So they become happier and they get more satisfaction in relationship later in life after a few bruises here and there. So they become much more careful in what they choose, And such people, Venus is your taste, what taste you have. So such people, Rahu is a very foreign influence, is something very unusual. And such artists, for instance, with such position, they'll be quite crazy artists, quite unusual. It can even bother to the grotesque, The taste might be somehow distorted with some foreign elements. It can be a piece, it can be genius almost when it comes to your taste, or it can be the opposite. You might not have you might be always clashing colors and not being able to make or right choices for clothes, for anything which you have to use choice, or for art. Venus is art. There might be either extreme art, which borders with the grotesque, or something genius, which is the other extreme, But it's a bit unusual always. Their taste, in their taste in beautiful things, their taste in relationship as well. And for the most extreme thing that can happen is you're so afraid of the area that you haven't developed in past life, which is Venus in relationship, that some people might feel totally blocked because Rahu gives this eclipse and they feel, no, I'm not going to relationship, I'm not doing relationship, that's it. So they might wait till much later in life to allow someone into their life because they're fearful of the things they don't know. Or usually it's the other extreme. As we said, the North Node is planets of extremes, either one or the other. Or the other extreme, they jump from bed to bed, from bed to bed, from one partner to another, and they never have enough. Rahu is insatiable, the North Node. They never have enough. They want more and more. So such men, especially in the charts of men who have Venus and Rahu, they can be philanderers. They can sleep with many women, And actually, they get very fascinated with those women. They can feel very obsessed and desire a woman, but they very quickly get bored after that because Rahu is obsessive planet. It locks into something, into someone, in some quality of a person that they magnify and blow it out of a proportion and make it much better than they are. And it's usually a quality that they want for themselves. So they go for a person who exhibits those qualities, and later they quickly exhaust this, and they jump into another relationship, into another, and usually settle a bit later in life as well. While for women with this position, there's also two extremes. They're either fearful of relationship, or they keep making mistakes, and they call it the porn star combination, making the wrong choices. I'm not saying you are one, but it's a bit. It's more to do with the self-worth in a female's chart, because Venus rules how you value yourself. For men, usually, they don't appreciate a woman properly. They value a woman for the wrong things, and they go from one woman after another. They don't value the real treasure thing. They're not able to evaluate the real beauty in a woman till later in life. While for a woman, this combination means that a woman cannot evaluate her own self-worth. So they have a lowered pride or self-worth. So they allow somehow, they allow men to take advantage of them sometimes, or to treat them bad, or, they make the wrong choices in relationships. So it's a bit of a difficult position, but it develops later. So such people, better relationships, and the ability to make better choices in life comes a bit later in life, after a few mishaps. And it's not, don't get too freak out. You're here to develop relationships. You're here to work on that. So, just try and balance those, trying to do them to the best of your abilities, rather than, keep doing silly mistakes in those areas. So it is a very interesting combination. It can be, a woman with such combination can be extremely attractive to men as well, because she externalizes as we said, the North Node always externalizes she can look very proud, she can look like the most beautiful women. A lot of beauty queens have this combination, women who, earn pageants because they externalize the self-worth of Venus, so they always look very sexy, or not all of them, but some of the women, or they try and prove to themselves they're worthy by pageants, or by getting themselves involved in high glamorous places, or by overly sexualizing themselves, making themselves overly desirable. This is one of the things that Rahu can do. It exaggerates and externalizes rather than receiving real inner self-worth, Or men with this position, they can be attracted to overly sexual women, to women who are overly worldly, or overly, a bit dirty women, not dirty, but like sexual and more externalizing those desires outside. They can be attracted to those kind of women that we were talking, that it will make a woman with a bit less of self-worth, which they externalize and try to compensate for the lack of self-worth inside. So that's why they keep jumping from more relationships, from one to another. Or in the extreme cases, they can be frozen. A person with this position, as we said, they can be frozen into fears of relationships, so they don't even go there, because Rahu creates eclipse, so darkness, you don't see anything. So some people who don't see anything, they'll keep, doing silly things in the dark, while others would freeze and they would not move at all. But those who are actually trying, at least moving in the direction of trying one relationship after another, at least they're learning. Those who are fully frozen, they're stalling their development, so they have to develop those things. Even if they keep making mistakes, sooner or later they'll get it right. Thank you so much, and share with everyone how do you experience these positions in your life? How does it affect you?